All right, let's jump right in. We're about to take a whirlwind tour through the last 2,000 years of history to see who was on top century by century. It's a story of incredible empires, epic rivalries, and the never-ending shifting balance of global power. If you think about it, in pretty much every era of human history, one civilization has stood head and shoulders above everyone else. I mean, from the legions of ancient Rome to the aircraft carriers of today, a single power has usually been the one to call the shots. But here's the thing, that top spot, it's never permanent. History is just this brutal, relentless story of rise and fall. Empires that seemed absolutely invincible just crumbled, and new powers would always emerge from the ashes to take their place. The only thing you can really count on is change. So you might be asking, how are we defining a great power? Well, for our journey today, we're keeping it pretty straightforward. We're looking at two key things: sheer territory and military muscle. Basically, who had the biggest map and the strongest army. Okay, so our story kicks off in the classical world. This is the era of legendary empires, where the whole concept of global power was basically forged in fire and conquest. So let's dive into Act 1, the Clash of Ancient Titans. For the first couple of centuries of the Common Era, there was really one undisputed champion: the Roman Empire. Its control over the Mediterranean was total, hitting its absolute peak under Emperor Trajan. But even at the top of their game, Rome had a major rival nagging them out in the east: the Parthian Empire, a constant thorn in their side. But by the end of the 2nd century, the power map gets totally redrawn. Why? Because a new superpower had risen in the east, Han Dynasty China. And get this, at about the same size as Rome, these two massive empires created what we now call a bipolar world. The planet basically had two competing centers of gravity. The next few centuries were, well, pretty chaotic, a time of tremendous upheaval. The old order completely fractures as new players enter the game. You've got the Sasanian Empire popping up in Persia, the Gupta Empire having its golden age in India, and then, boom, Attila the Hun just tears across the map with his vast but short-lived empire. It all comes to a very dramatic close in 476, when the Western Roman Empire finally bites the dust. So, out of the ashes of that classical world, a completely new power explodes out of the Arabian desert, a force that would redraw the entire map of the world. And that brings us to Act 2, the golden age of the caliphates. In the 7th century, the world was just completely shaken by the dramatic rise of Islam. In what felt like the blink of an eye, a new political and military powerhouse, the Caliphate, emerged and quickly became the world's #1 power. I mean, the speed of the Caliphate's growth was just breathtaking. It starts with the Rashidun Caliphate's early conquests, then the Umayyads take over and expand the empire to its absolute peak. We're talking from India all the way to the Atlantic Ocean. After them, the Abbasids moved the capital to Baghdad and kicked off an incredible golden age of science and culture. But you know the story by now, right? Unity like that never seems to last. By the 10th century, the Caliphate had fractured. Sure, the Abbasids were still in Baghdad, but their power was mostly symbolic. The real authority was held by a bunch of competing dynasties: the Fatimids in Egypt, the Buyids in Persia, and later the powerful Seljuk Turks. The Islamic world was no longer one empire, but a collection of powerful rival states. Now, a fragmented world like that is just ripe for the picking. And sure enough, a new, seemingly unstoppable force was gathering out on the steppes of Central Asia. This brings us right into Act 3, the Great Power Shift. In the 13th century, one name struck fear into the hearts of kings and emperors all the way from China to Europe: Genghis Khan. The Mongol empire he built became the great power of its time. And get this, it was the largest single piece of connected land ever controlled by one empire in all of human history. But following the pattern, the Mongol Empire's unity was almost as brief as its rise was brutal. It quickly shattered into different successor states. By the 14th century, the most influential of these were the Ilkhanate in Persia and, a bit later, the fearsome Timurid Empire founded by Timur, also known as Tamerlane, over in Central Asia. The 15th century marks a massive turning point. A new power, the Ottoman Empire, rises with astonishing speed. And the big moment, the one that changed everything, was in 1453 when they captured Constantinople. This single event didn't just end the 1,000-year-old Byzantine Empire, it pretty much signaled the end of the entire Middle Ages. And this is the moment everything changes. Seriously, for millennia, the great centers of power had been in the East: Persia, India, China, the Islamic world. From this point on, the balance of power permanently flips. The world's center of gravity begins a decisive shift toward the rising kingdoms of Europe. This westward shift in power kicked off an age of global exploration and conquest that leads directly to the world we know today. So, welcome to our final act, Dawn of the Superpowers. The next 300 years were a whirlwind of competition for that top spot. In the 16th century, the Ottomans hit their peak just as Spain and Portugal were building the first truly global empires across the oceans. The 17th century saw power shift from Spain to France. And the 18th century, that's when a new giant, the Russian Empire, stepped onto the world stage. After the Napoleonic Wars completely reshuffled the deck in Europe, one nation emerged as the clear winner. The 19th century belonged without a doubt to Great Britain. It created a period of relative global peace called the Pax Britannica, mostly because nobody could even think about challenging its economic and naval might. And the scale of its power was just staggering. The British Empire became the largest colonial empire in history, with territories on every single continent. That's where we get the famous saying that the sun never set on it, because somewhere in the world it was always daytime in a British territory. But the 20th century completely shattered that order. The unimaginable devastation of 2 world wars just exhausted the old European colonial powers. Britain, even though it was on the winning side, was economically ruined, and its grip on global power was broken for good. So what came out of the rubble of World War II? The world realigned itself around 2 new ideologically opposed superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union. This created a new bipolar world, one defined by the decades-long standoff we all know as the Cold War. That standoff came to a dramatic end in 1991 with the dissolution of the Soviet Union. With its primary rival gone from the world stage, the 20th century closed with the United States as the planet's single, undisputed superpower. So there you have it, 2,000 years of empires rising and falling, a constant cycle of change. If this journey has taught us anything, it's that the throne of great power has never been a permanent seat. As we navigate the 21st century, the question isn't if the throne will change hands again, but who will claim it next.